So we can go ahead and get started with the 5 reasons why your organization, or I guess why your customers really, why their organizations need to be backing up their Microsoft 365. So just a quick look at the agenda for today. I'm going to do a quick introduction. We're going to go over the 5 reasons why you should be backing up your client's data. And then we're going to do a product demo to show you guys how you can leverage tools built in, or tools that are within Augmentt to then actually back up your client's data. And then we will have a Q&A session at the end. And I wanted to point out the fact that the Q&A session will be at the end because on this webinar, I am flying solo. So I won't really be able to look at your questions throughout the webinar. So that way, at the end, if I don't get to any of your questions as I'm going through the demonstration or going through the list, I'll answer your questions at that point. So just a quick introduction. My name is Michael Kraft. I'm the senior sales engineer here at Augmentt. And if you have ever attended a webinar with our VP of Product, Ali, where I was also on the webinar as a co-host or a presenter, or maybe you've seen me on the road, I always get introduced as the SaaS Crusader. I dressed up one time for an event, and the company has not let that down. So for those of you that don't recognize me in my plain clothes, here's an image of what I look like a lot of the times on these webinars, and maybe you guys recognize me that way. But let's get into it. So like I said, there's 5 reasons that I wanted to demonstrate why you should be backing up your client's SaaS data. And well, number 1, data is vulnerable. I mean, pretty obvious that it's vulnerable, and it's vulnerable for multiple reasons, but it's like, you know, like we can see here in the list on the screen, you know, human error. You guys know better than I do, but I've seen it time and time again where, you know, people make mistakes. They accidentally delete an email. They click on a phishing campaign. They go somewhere they shouldn't go, and then they call you guys to fix it for them. I tried to find a graphic that I saw a few years back where it looked like a boxing ring, and it was the announcer saying in this corner, and it was the cybersecurity expert, and they had all their tools. They had the endpoint protection, and they had the antivirus and backup and disaster recovery and everything. And it's like, and in this corner, Bob, you know, just the regular human. But you know, human errors happen a lot, and we don't see it in the news as frequently as we see some of these other, you know, cybersecurity incidents. But it's really the reason for a lot of issues that these companies run into. But most of the time, human error is not malicious. It's just a mistake. But there are times, of course, where there is that malicious intent, a disgruntled employee, corporate espionage, you know, where people purposefully remove files or maybe even modify those. Synchronization errors is another issue that we run into, right? You know, where file just doesn't get uploaded that's supposed to get uploaded, and then, you know, the customer's calling you once again for help with that. And then, of course, what we do see in the news is, you know, with hacking and malware and ransomware and things like that, where people fall victim to criminals that are out there and lose their data. And of course, outages. You know, it's one of those things that we hope never happens, but unfortunately does happen from time to time. So let's move on to number 2, which is the fact that a data breach is expensive. And you guys probably, once again, know that better than I do. But you know, my quote here is a little outdated. It's from 2019, but it's still relevant right now. You know, the fact that on average, a data breach is $3.92 million. And that was, once again, 4 years ago. So it's probably gone up since then. But, you know, IBM and Ponymon are definitely, you know, reputable. I can't talk today, but anyway, the respectable sources. So I still want to go with this. But the fact that it's been almost a year from the point where the data breach happens to when it's typically discovered, that's the scary part to me. You know, the fact that you have no clue, or the customer has no clue that their data has been breached, and it can be quite costly. So we want to be able to back that data up, of course. And then number 3 is the fact that Microsoft even will tell you that it's a shared responsibility to back up your information. It's not completely up to them. And Microsoft will also tell you that, you know, as much as they strive to make sure that their services are always available, there's going to be outages. There's going to be downtime. There can be issues. I mean, software is going to have issues at some point. So you really want to make sure that you're not solely reliant on Microsoft to back up that data, that you do have some type of third-party tool to back up your client's data. And then For those of you that have clients that have to adhere to certain regulatory compliances, for our European partners, you guys have GDPR. In the US, there's HIPAA, and Canada, CHIPAA, stuff like that. There are certain regulations that require you to not just back up the data, but make sure that it's encrypted and stored properly. So you want to make sure that you're relying on a reputable backup service that can not only back up the data, but also encrypt it, and then can also allow you to easily recover that data. And then coming in at number 5 is why you guys should be backing up your client's data, is the fact that Microsoft's native quote unquote backup and recovery isn't the best. And relying on end users to actually utilize those services is a bit scary as well. Whether it be Microsoft's archiving or someone saying, well, I just leave it in my inbox and it'll hold on to it for a long time. It doesn't hold on to it forever. Microsoft will hold on to the data for a while, but like we just saw with that data breach slide, it took almost a year for information or for the breach to be identified. So if Microsoft's holding on to your data for 30, 60, 90 days, whatever the case may be, that might not be enough time. And it's weird that I've had this webinar this afternoon, because this morning I was actually talking to a partner about this specifically, where he was trying to sell backup to a client, and his client was basically saying that, yeah, we've got Microsoft, we're fine. And his point was, what if you get sued a year from now and you need to find a file from today? Are you really going to be able to find that in your Microsoft environment? And even if you are able to recover data that has been, say, archived through Microsoft, it can be tedious, it can be destructive. So it's just a pain, right? So you want to be able to have a third-party tool that is designed specifically for backup and for recovery, and not rely solely on Microsoft to provide you with everything. So that brings us to our backup product demo. So at Augmentt, we have partnered with a company, it's called Cloud Ally, to provide backup services. So let's take a look at the Augmentt Backup service. Whoops, not Q&A. We'll get back to that. And first off, let me hop into the Augmentt portal. So you guys have probably noticed, well, I see, well, Carrie, you're on here. You've been with us for a while. You've probably seen at some point or another, there was a backup tab in the product that has been moved to solutions, because not just backup, but we have other companies that we are partnering with to offer additional services to you guys through our platform. But specifically backup, if you are not using our service and you click on it, it'll take you to our website telling you about our backup product. If you are using it, it'll take you to your backup partner portal. So let's start off on the partner side and discuss a few different things. And well, first off, it's multi-tenant, so you can manage multiple client accounts through one backup dashboard. You're not logging in and out of different portals to do so, which it's one of those things that you're going to kind of expect to see. And then also at the partner level, just a couple things I'd like to point out is that you guys can have as many of your internal users in the backup solution as you'd like, but not only can you have as many of these users as you like, but you can customize their access and even how they log into the backup portal. So if you just want them logging in with standard email, password, you can even throw in some 2FA on there, go for it. Or you can set up SSO through Microsoft or even Google. You can set users up as admins where they have full access to everything in the solution, or you can customize what they can and cannot do in the backup portal, even which customers they have access to. So if you have different texts that are dedicated to different client accounts, you can make sure that they are only accessing those accounts that they need to have access to. Another thing I'd like to point out on the partner level is you do have reports and notifications that span across your entire customer base. So that way, if you just wanted to see a summary report of everything happening, or if you just wanted to see failed backups, you don't necessarily need to see a daily or weekly or monthly report. All you need to know is if those backups were successful or not. You can have it set up where it only sends out that report in case of failure. And then you can send these reports to whoever you want to within your organization. So you can have multiple recipients in here and then just pick and choose what you want to have included in those reports that you send out. But enough about the partner side of things. Let's get into how you guys can start managing client accounts throughout the backup service. And first off, something I think is really cool is whenever you add a client to the backup, you have the standard information that you'd expect, and you put the customer's name in and so on. But you can choose the data center where their backups reside. So for a US-based client, yeah, you can rely on the US-based data centers. But if you have Canadian clients, you need to store the data in Canada. If you have clients in Europe, clients across the globe, we have data centers everywhere. So depending on where your client resides or where they need their backups to reside, you have multiple options here. Even if they have their own S3 bucket, store the data there. So there's a lot of different options, I should say, as to where the data is stored. And we are relying on AWS servers, and the data is, of course, encrypted, which we'll get more into that when we get into the recovery options. So the data is encrypted in the storage facility, and there are backups of your backups. So they'll do Glacier backups where they can cold store the data along with the data that you have there, so that way you have redundancies built in. But let's get into a client account. So we'll just play pretend, say we created that new customer, hop into the client account. Whoops, I thought I was logged in, but looks like I'm not. Let me log in real quick, no big deal. I think I probably just took too long talking. There we go. So let me go back to the homepage. So for this client, I have a few different backups set up. And for the purposes of this webinar, we are going to focus solely on Microsoft 365 because it's the biggest SaaS tool that's out there. We have a lot that we do to secure Microsoft within our product as well. So we want to focus on the Microsoft backups. That being said, though, it's not the only item that you can back up through the solution. We have the entire Microsoft stack, so Teams, Exchange, SharePoint, etc. But then you also have the Google the Google stack, Salesforce, Box, Dropbox, and you might not have a lot of clients that you need to back up, say Box or Dropbox, Salesforce, probably one-offs in those scenarios. But we do have partners that might be using another service that they've been using for years. They're grandfathered into pricing that they don't want to make the switch for their Microsoft services, but maybe those services don't offer Box. So then they use us for Box backup. So just want to point that out. Like I said, the focus of today's webinar is on Microsoft, but there are other services that you can back up through the solution. And then once you've added a backup task, so say we add Exchange just as an example, and unfortunately I can't show this to you guys because since I'm authenticated using Augmentt, it would pull in the entire Augmentt organization, and there might have some people upset with me if I set that up, so I'm not going to. But whenever you go to set up your backup task, it will ask you for first off, for the schedule. How frequently do you want to back up this data? And out of the box, you can go with daily, weekly, or monthly. If you need to go more than once per day, it is an option. It's something our team will have to turn on for you. You can do, I think, up to 3 times per day. But out of the box, daily, weekly, or monthly. Also, there are no retention policies. So that way, you can store the data as long as you need to. Now, if you want to set a retention policy, you can. It is an option. But if you just go with the out-of-the-box settings, no retention policies, save the data as long as you need to. And we'll just hop into my Exchange backup. And because there are no retention policies and you can store this data forever, the data can build and build and build. So just wanted to point out, at least with Microsoft, that you are not billed for the amount of data that's in use or that's being stored. You're actually just billed for the licensed users that are in Microsoft. So like this account, just as an example, I have 4 unlicensed accounts and 4 licensed accounts. I'm only going to be billed for those 4 licensed users, even though I do have the ability to back up all 8 if I wanted to. But you can also pick and choose which users are backed up. So in this scenario, I do have all 4 of my licensed users being backed up, but I don't have to. I could pick and choose. Like I said, I could say I don't want to back up one of these users. And then even users that are no longer with the company, I can keep their data archived. I'm not running active backups, but the data is still there. It's been there for quite some time, and I could recover it if I need to, which we'll get into recoveries in just a few minutes. Just a couple other things I just wanted to point out while we're on this page is I mentioned how you can do scheduled backups daily, weekly, monthly. Now, If you don't want to wait until the scheduled time or there's an emergency, you need to back up that data right now, no problem. You can back up now. It's still going to back up at the scheduled time as well, but that way I can go ahead and get this backup kicked off. There's not really a whole lot going on here, so it'll actually probably back up pretty quickly. And I mentioned that I had that call earlier. You can see 5 hours ago, I backed up their data again. But anyway, you can do the backup now. You can pause the backups. You know, if Faisal is going to be out of town for a while and there's no need to back up his data, no problem. Pause the backups and then reactivate it whenever we need to. And then really the last thing I'd point out on this homepage is, well, something that, I mean, it looks good and everything's successful. That's what you want to see. But for me in a demo environment, sometimes I want it to give a failure so I can show you guys what it looks like, but no big deal. So if there was, say, a partial failure or something happened and the backup wasn't 100% successful, I would be able to kind of drill down into that from here, just kind of take a quick glance to see what it was that might not have backed up successfully. And then if there was something that I needed to then address further, I could drill down into that. And I can also do that from the jobs page. And once again, I was hoping that I'd get that job in time, but it looks like, no, I didn't. It was already, maybe I can pull it off now. Nah, it's probably too late now. But anyway, on the jobs page, it'll show if there are backups in progress, successful backups, failures. And I only have one item on here, and this one was on purpose. I did have a failed recovery that I wanted to be able to show, but I only have one thing on here. You guys will probably have a lot more, you know, multiple users being backed up. It's not a demo environment, it's a live environment. So you'll have backups in progress and successful backups and failed backups, hopefully not failed backups, but if they are there and you want to get to them, you can easily filter the data to find exactly what you're looking for. And then this one, I can view the log, which we'll get back to the logs in just a little bit, but then I can view additional details to find out, you know, it was this particular account and, you know, this restore and it failed. So I can, like I said, we'll take a closer look at that in just a little bit. But the jobs page, I can at least view what's happening and then just kind of take a quick glance if I'm looking for something in particular. But now what I think at least is really cool about the backup is recovery, which, I mean, any backup tool is going to have a recovery. You want to be able to recover the data. So yeah, recovery is recovery, but there's some really cool things that you can do here. So let me hop into that exchange that we were just looking at and one particular user. So yeah, you've got the recovery snapshot option that you would probably see with just about any other SaaS backup tool that's out there, where I could say, you know, I want to look at backups from, we'll say from 2 years ago to today. Actually, I hit the wrong thing. Let's try that one more time. From 2 years ago until today. And it'll take just a moment. There's not a whole lot of data in here. Once again, this is a demo environment. But now I've got 2 years of data, and whatever it is that I'm looking for, say it's, I don't know, these emails, I could just restore all the emails from that day, you know, just kind of one fell swoop. But I can get a little bit more granular with this, where I can drill down to maybe a specific folder or file. So if I just wanted to go straight to the inbox and say, there's that email that I need to restore, check the box. We'll get to the restore and download here in just a moment. So you just wanted to point out snapshot recovery is what you'd expect. No big deal, pretty simple. But what I think is really cool is the item search. So I mentioned earlier about encryption when I was going through the slides, how, you know, you really want to make sure that the backup solution that you use encrypts the data. Well, the data is encrypted in transit, just using you know, port 443. Once it hits the data center, it will take a quick snapshot of that data, and then it encrypts it and rest it as well in the data center. But because it takes that snapshot, you can do keyword searches. So just as an example, just going to search for the word Augmentt in the emails. And now it's going to show me all the emails that contain the word Augmentt. Cool. Great. Now, if I'm still not quite sure which email it is I need to recover, we've got these drop-down arrows where I can get additional details. Now, one thing we're not going to show is the body of the message. We're not trying to be Big Brother, not giving you full insight into everything, but we will show you the sender, the recipient, the subject, So that way you can kind of glance over this and see, yes, this is the one, that's the item that needs to be restored. Cool. So I'll check the box, and now we've got a few different options. So I can restore the data back to where it came from. I can send it, let's see, this one was, well, this is sent items, but I could, like I said, send it right back to where it came from, or I can send it somewhere else. So if this user is no longer with the company, but we need to recover this information, I could put in another inbox, and I can have that data sent to that new inbox. Now, if just sending it back to the inbox is not your cup of tea, you actually need to download it, no problem, we can do that too. So this is an email, so of course I can download it either in email or PST, but I can not only do a direct download, but I can also send it to another storage location. If I wanted to send it to Box or Dropbox or to a S3 bucket, just put in the information. I can include legal holds as well, and then I can download that file or send it, like I said, to another cloud storage facility. But now, because you have so many options here and so much control, you probably want to have a CYA policy or some way to cover your tracks if you are restoring data to different locations, or the ability to directly download the information. So everything is tracked in the solution. There is a security audit that shows every action that was initiated, who initiated it, when they initiated it, what was it that they did, whether like that backup now that I just did a couple times earlier in the demo, or even the pausing the backup, that was all tracked. So if you do a recovery on a user account, you're going to see it in here, and then you can export this. And that way you can share it with the client if need be, and you can filter this information as well. So if you only wanted to, if they're only concerned with certain items, they only wanted to see if there was a failed backup or something like that, or a recovery, whatever the case may be, you can go in here and then filter the data and show the client what they need to see. But beyond that security audit, there also is a system activity where, once again, information is tracked in here. This is where, if there was, say, a failed action, whether it's a recovery or backup, whatever, I could see additional details. So I'm just going to narrow that down to only failed items. And then I could click on the eye here. But what's cool is I can then export this activity log and then take a closer look at whatever it is that I need to see, whether it was a failed backup, a failed recovery, and so on. And then beyond just having the ability to kind of track activity and being able to export that and share it with your clients, you also have the ability to generate reports to share with your clients. And reports, some customers want to see all kinds of reports. They want to know that you're doing stuff for them behind the scenes. They want to kind of be in the mix, if you will. Some customers, they don't want anything. They just trust you to do everything on your own. And then some customers might only want to know if there's an issue. And really all three of those options are covered here. So for those customers that want to see maybe a weekly, monthly, even daily report, cool. Set up a schedule, daily, weekly, monthly, and then you can just do kind of like an executive summary. So just a quick glance, I'll make it a little bigger for you guys, where these are the backups that happened. This is not a good report to share with the client. I've got 3 successful, 3 partial failed, 4 failed. But typically you'd see what you want to show the client. But then what's nice, like I said, this is kind of an executive summary, just very high level. And then if they really wanted to see the full details, then they could download that full report. And then you could send this to the client as a CSV or just a download link where they just click on the link and it takes them through the browser to that report. Or if you have that client that only wants to know if there are issues happening, okay, just send out that backup failed report that only shows failed backups. And you could send it out only if there is a failed backup. So, I mean, you could have a schedule set, or you could just say only if it's a failed backup, send it out. So it's kind of like almost like an alert. And with these notifications, you can send them to whoever you'd like, add multiple recipients in here, whether it's a client, yourself, whoever. Maybe the executive level at the client's location just wants that summary report, and then maybe someone more technical at the client's location wants everything. Whatever the case may be, pick and choose which reports to send out to them, and then send it to the recipient that needs to receive those. And then for your clients that maybe are co-managed or want to be able to see the solution, want to be able to touch the solution and get into it, got that covered too. So you can have as many users in here as you'd like. And I showed you how you can add your internal users at the partner level, but this is for the client. So, I mean, you could, of course, add your own internal users in here at the client level as well. But specifically, this would be to add customers so they can get into the backups and either view the data or even perform actions themselves. So like I said, co-managed environments, you could set a customer up in here with full-blown administrator access, or just like at the partner level, you can customize what they can and cannot do and just kind of go through the lists, pick and choose what they have access to within the solution. And just like at your partner level, you can get them in here with just regular email and password. Once again, 2FA is also an option, or you can set them up with, SSO through Microsoft or through Google. So that's pretty much it on the backup product. It's an easy product to use. It's an easy product to demonstrate. Oh, one more thing. Sorry, I failed to mention when I was showing the exchange, but if you do a recovery, especially like here I'm on SharePoint where I might have files stored already, and I need to recover, maybe an older version of a file that I have stored. Let's just pick something here once it loads. Oh, I didn't, that's fine. That'll still work. We'll just say that one, and we'll drill down into it just like we did with the emails and say this is the folder. So if I go to download this, or not download, sorry, restore this, I can choose, of course, I want non-destructive, and then I can choose what options I have, whether I duplicate the file, replace it, whatever the case may be. So that way I'm not destroying a newer version of the file that might be there in place. I can make sure maybe I want to duplicate it, have just two versions of the file, whatever I need to set up, I can do with a non-destructive recovery. So just to summarize, just a few kind of high-level items. The backup is built, at least for Microsoft, actually tell you what, for Microsoft, Google, and Salesforce, like I said, we're focusing on Microsoft today. It is billed per licensed user for Microsoft, so only those licensed accounts, shared mailboxes, guest accounts, stuff like that, that don't have licenses, they do not apply as far as what you're being billed for, but you can still back up on licensed accounts. Same thing with Google, Salesforce, you can back, it's billed per user. Box and Dropbox, it's billed per 10 gigabyte bucket. But like I said, with Microsoft, it's per licensed user. Unlimited retention policies, so you can store the data as long as you need to. There's no data trimming. So that way you can, and then you can, there's no, where was I going with this? But anyway, if there's no storage limit, you can store as much data as you need to, because like I said, it's billed per user. Choose your data center locations once again. The data is encrypted, and there is a Glacier backup of your backups, so there is redundancy as well. I think that's everything. If you guys are interested in taking a closer look at the backup, want to test it out, want to find out more, scan the QR code, and our team will be happy to reach out and answer questions that you might have. Also, you've got my email address once again, so if any questions come up later, you can contact me as well. I do want to thank you guys for joining today and listening to me talk for about 30 minutes about the backup product. I hope everyone has a great day, and we will speak soon. Bye, guys.